From the very first moment, the story grips us with an unsettling truth, because this is not just another tale of friendship or family. This is about a young woman whose life is cut short in the most horrifying way, and the chilling 7 days that follow when her spirit refuses to rest. We meet Vina, a gentle and innocent girl, full of life, full of dreams, someone who should have had an entire future ahead of her. But fate decides otherwise. The film begins with scenes of her family and friends, their everyday laughter, her sweetness, and the simple, normal life that makes her loss feel even more crushing. You might think it is just a normal introduction to a young girl, but hidden inside these quiet moments is the deep sorrow that will soon unravel. Vina lives in a close-knit family, one that looks ordinary from the outside, yet carries invisible cracks beneath. Her innocence and natural kindness stand out, which is why the people around her admire her. But it also makes her a vulnerable soul in a world filled with cruelty. The movie carefully shows her daily life in brief touches, so we know who she is before tragedy strikes. She is not a superstar or someone larger than life. She is simply a young woman who wants to be loved and protected. That ordinary purity is what makes her story so haunting. Then the film begins its descent into darkness. Vina goes missing, her family frantic, neighbors restless, whispers running through the community. At first, people convince themselves that maybe she is delayed somewhere, maybe she will return home safe, but the heavy silence drags too long. When her lifeless body is finally discovered, the atmosphere changes forever. It is not just grief, it is shock, a nightmare that nobody can process. The pain is painted clearly on her parents' faces, their helplessness, their anger, their disbelief. For the audience, this is the hook, because we already know this death is not natural, and the truth behind it will be far more sinister. Vina's funeral scenes are heavy, slow, heartbreaking, but the movie doesn't linger too long on every detail. Instead, it shows us the raw emotions, people weeping, others frozen, her family completely shattered. This is where the audience begins to ask, why did this happen? Who is responsible? And why do the whispers about Vina's spirit start surfacing so soon? Because before the weekends, strange things begin to happen. Her friends and relatives start feeling her presence, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in the corner of their eyes, sometimes through unexplainable whispers that sound almost too real. At this stage, the film sets the ground for what is to come. Vina is gone physically, yet her soul refuses to stay silent, and as the family tries to mourn, her spirit begins to rise with restless energy. You might think this is just grief creating illusions, but no, something much darker is unfolding. The buildup begins with the uneasy days following Vina's funeral. The community tries to return to normal, but her family cannot. Her mother, restless and broken, feels her daughter's spirit hovering around the house. Objects shift slightly on their own. Windows creak at night, and faint shadows linger in her room. The father, trying to be rational, dismisses these experiences at first, but even he cannot deny when several members of the family start experiencing the same haunting signs. The movie captures these moments in short strokes, enough to unsettle the audience without drowning us in repetition. Slowly, the tension builds as the real story of what happened to Vina surfaces. Through flashbacks and confessions, we learn that her death was not a tragic accident, but a brutal crime committed by people she trusted. Each revelation feels like a knife to the heart. She was betrayed, cornered, silenced. Her innocence was shattered in her final moments, and the audience feels the full weight of injustice. This is where the film begins, showing us the faces of those responsible. They are not strangers, they are people she knew, people the community interacts with every day. That betrayal, it's harder than anything else. Meanwhile, Vina's restless soul does not appear as a violent ghost, but as a grieving spirit demanding justice. She communicates through visions, through subtle possessions, through influencing the dreams of her loved ones. These sequences are emotionally heavy because her spirit does not lash out blindly. She directs her energy toward those who can help expose the truth. You might think she would want revenge, but instead she wants her voice heard, her pain acknowledged, her killers unmasked. The build-up stretches across several characters who become pieces of this puzzle. Her closest friends start uncovering secrets. Her family members face threats for speaking out, and even members of the wider community start feeling the pressure. The killers, on the other hand, grow more desperate. Their guilt manifests in paranoia. They hear her voice when no one is there. They wake up from nightmares drenched in sweat. They start losing their grip. The movie uses these haunting moments not only for fear, but to show the unstoppable weight of truth pressing against lies. As days pass, the line between the living and the dead blurs further. One of the most intense sequences shows Vina's mother being completely overtaken by her daughter's spirit, her voice suddenly changing, her expressions no longer her own. For a brief moment, it is as if Vina has returned in flesh, revealing small clues about her murder. The family, terrified yet hopeful, realizes This is not madness. Their daughter's soul is still fighting. The community begins buzzing with rumors. Some people believe, others dismiss, but everyone feels the chill. The police investigation, initially weak, starts tightening as Vina's spirit-guided revelations point them toward the culprits. This section of the movie is the emotional backbone, a restless chain of discoveries where grief meets horror, and horror transforms into a push for justice. And just as the family begins piecing together the truth, the killers make their move. They try to silence witnesses, manipulate evidence, and in their desperation, they almost succeed. But what they cannot control is Vina's presence, because every time they try to bury the truth, her spirit rises stronger. The buildup ends on a heavy cliff. The final day is approaching, the seventh day, when Vina's spirit will either find peace or forever haunt the ones who wronged her. But to do that, the entire horrifying truth must be exposed, and that means the killers must face her wrath. The climax bursts open with the seventh day approaching, the night when Vina's spirit is at its strongest. The killers gather in panic, believing that if they can perform rituals or destroy evidence, they might escape. But Vina is no longer just a whisper in shadows. She manifests through possessions, through apparitions, through terrifying confrontations that strip away their sanity. One of the strongest moments is when she corners the ringleader. The film shows his arrogance collapsing into pure fear as objects crash around him, his surroundings bending under her unseen grip. He screams apologies into the darkness, but it is too late. Her presence overwhelms him, forcing him to relive the exact horrors he inflicted on her. The audience feels every ounce of poetic justice. The rest of the culprits try to run, but the community, now aware of the truth, begins to rise against them. Police intervene, guided partly by the evidence uncovered through Vina's strange messages. The climax is not just supernatural. It is both human justice and spiritual justice aligning. Her family watches in tears as her killers are finally exposed. Vina's spirit, still restless, lingers in her mother one final time. Through her mother's trembling lips, she whispers her last words, words of both sorrow and release. She does not scream for revenge. She asks to be remembered, to be loved, to be acknowledged as more than just another victim. The haunting quiet after her final possession leaves the entire room in shivers. The climax ends with her killers being dragged into custody, their faces pale, their minds broken, their crimes laid bare for everyone to see. Vina has spoken not through courts or newspapers, but through her own undying spirit. The final chapter slows down, heavy with grief, but also with relief. The family performs her final rites again, this time not with unanswered questions, but with truth revealed. The mother breaks down, whispering to the sky that her daughter can finally rest. The father, once hardened and skeptical, collapses in tears, accepting that his little girl was far braver than he ever imagined. The community gathers, united not by gossip, but by shared mourning. Even the police stand silently, humbled by the strange chain of events that forced them to confront corruption and negligence. Everyone has seen the power of truth, the power of a soul unwilling to be silenced. Vina's presence slowly fades. No more whispers, no more shadows, no more restless nights. It is as if she finally lets go, satisfied that her voice has been heard. The closing moments linger on her family, still broken, but at least carrying the small piece of knowing her killers will face justice. The camera does not give us a happy ending, because this was never a happy story. It gives us closure, the kind that weighs on your chest long after the credits roll. And as the final line of narration reminds us, some voices refuse to die, and sometimes, even after death, the truth will rise.